Today we are going to continue discussing communication skills. And today's focus and hot topic is going to be co-parenting. So I'll give you just a moment to tune in. Shouts out to the HOC family. Shouts out to RBL. What up, what up, what up, y'all? Fairy gang, whoop whoop, and Jig Ace. Wagwan. I'll give you all just a moment to tune in. Let me know when you're in the building. You all had a break. Y'all just started with y'all yogini training. Shouts out to y'all for getting it in with that hefty Vedic work. And we over here learning how to communicate and keep our family straight. All right? Peace. What up, Cheryl? How you doing, love? What up? Give y'all a moment while I get the other joint in queue. And I'll be able to communicate via typing. How y'all feeling? How are y'all feeling? All right, I see the live chat is moving. Here we go. All right, turn this off. Are y'all ready for this? Who's ready for co-parenting? Who is ready for co-parenting? Let me know. I'll tell you, I've been co-parenting. Let me see. Thank you, Cheryl. Do on it too. I have been let me give you my background, because first of all, if you've read my book, The Chosen Life, the same way I mentioned in the financial portion, it's something I also mention to people that I coach, is that you want to know the background of the individual, giving you some information about what to do, how to do it. Okay. Those of you who know, I have a son. He's 17 Monday. Shouts out to him. And I also have a daughter, and she's 7. And so I have been co-parenting for a long time. In between that, I didn't have to co-parent. In between that, I've experienced single parenting. I want to touch on some of the differences in the co-parenting versus single parenting. And I think that this topic is pretty hot nowadays because we are experiencing more freedom in how we create our families versus how it was traditionally done. We have a lot more choices. We have a lot more choices available to us. Excuse me, feeling a little like a munchkin here. Okay. Then to top it off, for those of you who are part of the Facebook, the private group called House of Chi, you all have made it clear that you're interested in gaining some more tools and insight so that you can have a more harmonious relationship with your other parent. And I commend you all. If I had a hat, I'd say hats off to you all for even wanting to go into this space, because it takes effort. As I mentioned, all really great communication is going to take some effort. There's a learning that has to occur between the parties who are going to be communicating. And there's going to be someone who's going to initiate this journey. And because you're here, I'm just going to assume that it's you, right? I would like to shout out everyone that I see coming in, but the other screen won't actually show me. So I'm going to look here on the cell phone. What up, Aki? Thank you, love. What up, Cody? And as I do this, hey, Vicky, how are you? As I do this, if you have questions that come up, this is a great opportunity to ask those questions, because whatever I don't touch on in here and you want to maybe work with me in the future for your own personal experience, your own personal situation, I'll be available for you for that through consultations. But here's your opportunity to kind of get like some free feedback. You know, no problem with that. I'm here for it. And it will be helpful for those who come along and may not have the opportunity to seek some one-on-one counseling around how to communicate with their other parent. With all that said, let me know that you have your notebooks ready. and that you're ready to dive in. I'm starting to think that this topic might even need more than one video, but I think that this is going to be enough for you to address some of the challenges that you may be facing when it comes to co-parenting in itself. All right, so once I see some ones in the chat, I will know that you are ready to start writing so that you can ask appropriate questions so that I know that you are present. Okay. And might I add, what if you don't have children yet? What if you don't want children? But what if you end up dating someone with children? How can this be beneficial to you if you're not a parent? Well, you can share this information with someone who you may see is kind of challenged with the subject, or you can share it with your partner who may be learning how to co-parent. Yeah, I don't have children, but they do, and you may not consider them your children. Children are part of our lives, our journeys, thankfully, because if there were no children, then we would not have a future. So, wherever this information is helpful to you, please do share it. There's so much abundance in sharing this information with others who don't have access. Okay? So, first and foremost, let's start from the beginning. Let's just take a deep breath in and exhale. Hot topics when communicating. The first thing I want you to recognize and accept are the hard truths. Okay? I made a few that came to mind when I sat and meditated on co-parenting that caused some hiccups from the very beginning. Okay? One of the first hard truths is that, one, you may feel alone. You may feel very much alone. However, you did not create this child by yourself. So, for some people, that is a very hard fact that they don't take into account, because the feeling of aloneness around parenting can lend all of your thought processes around communicating with the other parent or the other guardian that you are sharing responsibility with, or not, right? You're going to come to the playing field with the attitude and the notion that whatever it is that you say alone is what it should be. The problem here is glaring, especially when you sit with the fact that the child or the children in between the parents were not created by yourself. Okay? I want you to sit with that for a moment, regardless of what your specific circumstances are. I am fully aware of very different circumstances and scenarios. However, while I'm sharing this lesson on co-parenting, I want you to take a note of the areas where whatever I'm saying, you start to feel resistance in the form of, well, I can't do blah, blah, blah because the other parent, blah, blah, blah. Some of what I'm saying is going to deeply trigger you into a space of resistance. Rightfully so, because I've been there. And it's like, I might have laid down with another human being, but that other human being is not as vested in the rearing of this child as I am. So, beginning from a place of, I'm not doing this by myself, I can't see it. From beginning in a place where we're talking about 50-50, nah, they didn't earn it, right? If you're gonna get ahead, you have to throw certain preconceived notions out the window so that you can really mold the reality that you desire. Okay? So initially, we're starting with two parents. Even if the other parent is deceased, there are two parents. Okay? You got that? How many of y'all are ready for your deep breath? All right. I haven't even gotten into stand-in parents who you are co-parenting with because the other parent might be imprisoned or deceased or mentally or physically incapable of parenting. Okay? I told you, I'm very well aware of very different circumstances. However, I will start with the basic principles, and where you have some variations, take note of it. Contact me. We can get through it. I promise you. Okay? The next thing is, you may look very good on paper, my love. But as a parent, you suck at it. I would like for you to write that down as one of the hard truths to reflect on. You may have a stellar job. You may have a better home, size, location, just upkeep. Okay? You may make more money. You may have graduated the top of your class. You may have a car. Yeah, great on paper. Like, just totally responsible. Your credit score is amazing. You work consistently. You have stability financially, all of that. And still, you may actually be the sucky parent. So, for those of you who feel like you're busting your ass around the clock to provide for your child and to create this environment that is the best, I want you to take a moment to acknowledge the possibility, not saying that it's always the case, the possibility that the other parent may actually be a better parent as far as it comes to these other things: attentiveness, imagination, creativity, um, ability to listen to what their child is saying, and so forth. And the reason why I want to point these things out is because for those who are really busting our tails to make sure to provide the stability, the structure, what sometimes falls to the side is that because you're working so diligently, so hard, you're so dedicated to creating a roof over their head and food in the refrigerator. You may be very busy. You may be very tired. You may be very stressed the hell out. You may be very scattered. And you may have very little patience when it comes to some of the other needs that your child or your children require for a wholesome upbringing. And that's a hard reality and truth to also look at. All right. While you may have a larger, more beautiful home, it might be very lonely or cold in that home. It might be filled with things like televisions and tablets, um, and devices to keep the children engaged because you don't have time to address them. Whereas in a small environment, there might be more community. There might be other children to play with. There might be other adults who have more time on their hands who can actually engage one on one, take the children to the park, be outside. These are elements just for your own reflection before you go into directing this journey of co parenting. The reason why I'm asking you to first acknowledge these areas is because when you go into directing how things should go, I want you to even acknowledge areas where the other parent may really excel in whatever arrangement you two create. You should know that beforehand. Because if you, one, can focus, not just focus on yourself, but if you can begin to pull out some of those areas where you probably are not the shining star of the parenting dynamic, when you get to communicating and the other person feels triggered to point out your flaws as a parent, they might be pointing out the very things that you took the time to already address within yourself, which is going to give you another level of patience, grace, compassion, and ease so that you're not so triggered into a back and forth, but even offering a sense of understanding, stating that you've already seen yourself and that you understand that. And because you see these things, you are offering space for this other parent to excel in those areas as a complement to what it is that you all are doing together. Does that make sense? Because I'm digging. I want to make sure that you don't miss some of those jewels when it comes to preparation for leading the way when it comes to co-parenting. Make sense? And how many of you are triggered now? I want you to be triggered. I want you to be triggered because this is grow or die season. Okay? And if you're not triggered, then we're not breaking any hulls of seeds, and then you cannot get out. You won't grow. Okay? Lastly, I kind of want to highlight where your degree that you got in school does not matter here. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if you got your associates, bachelor's, master's, or PhD in child psychology. Okay? Right now, when it comes to this, I want you to take all of your paper and put it to the side, because this is never going to work where you're sitting with your other parent and you go, well, I've been a teacher for 20 years and I know children and I know what they need. Because what you'll realize is coming out of your mouth is that you've become an expert of other people's children, okay? And who has been present for your child or your children is going to be really, in reality, who has been present for you and your children and what they need specifically. And we can have a tendency to think that our professional degrees outside dictate our abilities and our expertise in our realities of what we live every single day. As a parent myself, I recognize that each of my children have these nuances about them that require something very, very different. And it can be a difference in disciplinary action, to the kind of foods that they want to eat, to the activities they want to be in. Okay? Now, if you can soften your gaze enough to see the fuller picture when it comes to cultivating these beings, then you'll realize that the only thing you need to be masterful in is being able to pay attention and to respond appropriately to what is happening in front of you, and not so much with a cookie cutter type of mindset. In that, you'll be more of an expert around how to handle the situations with your children and your co-parent than someone who has studied it, closed the book, and wants to apply everything that they got from the book or even from a previous child to the next one. Okay? All right. Those were just some of the intro prompts for yourself and for you to even think about the other parent. Okay? I can give examples like being a professional myself, having graduated from college, and having a parent who might have a very active street life, but because they didn't have a 9 to 5 to clock into, they had more flexibility with picking up the children or dropping them off. They didn't mind playing video games with the children. I mean, and pardon me, they didn't have to be in the street to not mind playing video games, but like this is something that I noticed. I don't like playing video games. I'm not a fan of video games, but should my children suffer and never have video games because I personally am kind of like, you should be reading. No, I think that they should be able to be children. And if one of the other parents is into that, they should be able to reflect back in their lives that they were able to share a joyful moment around video games with the other parent. It doesn't always have to be me. So that's something also to address, is that do you always have to be the parent that has all the memories, or are you able to share? Right? Okay. So, a few prompts for you to begin with. And now, your other parent. One, you want to establish what is your focus. All right? And when we're talking about co-parenting, I'm starting to realize something that's not mentioned. We think of co-parenting as two individuals who are no longer in a relationship, and now they are parenting a child that came about while they were together. But truth be told, these co-parenting skills are very useful even in the sense or the environment where the parents are still together. Because you can be with the other parent and still really struggle with parenting harmoniously, which is my definition of co-parenting. Co-parenting means that there are two people who are parenting in a harmonious fashion for a single goal. Okay? That is focused around the development of the child or the children. That would be my definition for co-parenting. So does it require that you're separated, you're not talking, you're in other states, you're not sleeping with each other, or whatever the case may be. It doesn't really, because the child is still that third leg and one representation of that union. So whether you're together or not, you're going to need to have these skills. Makes sense to me. Okay? The next thing you're going to need to define for successful co parenting are going to be some of the goals under the subjects of education, um, exposure, what you want your children to be exposed to, what you don't want them to be exposed to, and the purpose behind certain experiences and the reasons behind not wanting them to have certain experiences. In that department, you want to define that beforehand, okay? And be really open to all kinds of experiences, not just extracurricular activities, but lifestyle, okay? Lifestyle. That needs to be a conversation that's going to require collecting data, right? Reality data, like this is where you hang out, and these are some of the kind of things that are going to happen in this space. Or if you're in another relationship, or you have other parents in a new relationship, there's going to be the presence of other people, other family, all of those things. How do you want your child to be exposed to certain dynamics? You too should have this conversation. Okay. The next thing is you want to create a topic of responsibilities. These responsibilities are going to be around time, who's responsible for what, expenses, transportation. Is someone responsible more so for hands-on time versus weekends? Like during the week, school time, vacations versus while they're in school, the time frames should be addressed. Who has how much time and who has real time available? Okay? And if you're really, really, really busy because you are the person who's responsible for more of the stability, the structure, then you want to see how the other parent can supplement some of that time where you need to be missing to create the structure to support the children's development. So, what if the other parent may not be able to afford some of the bills associated with rearing children, but they do have access to time on their hands? Can they use that time to pick children up, drop them off? Can they utilize that time to help with homework after school? Can they utilize some of that time to take the children to do some type of activity at the park for free, the playground to blow some steam before they come home? Can they utilize that time to cook a meal? Okay? Because time is very important still, especially when it comes to parenting. And we want to put as much value on that, especially in cases where the material portion, who brings bread to the table versus who has time available. You don't want to just say to hell with time, like I just need help with these bills. Um, because we run into a problem where we're asking somebody for something they don't have. So you get stuck. You get stuck in that space, and then everyone's frustrated, and communication crumbles when everyone's frustrated. All right, makes sense? Okay. The last piece after there's an agreement for co-parenting is you want to identify your support systems. You really want to identify your support systems. outside of the other parent. Reason being is that, like I said, people move on. You know, we have children. Sometimes the intimate relationship falls apart and then life moves on. Okay? When life moves on, hopefully, on both behalves, each of them now have access to or still maintain a network of support around their families. Now, because you all have separated, if that's your situation, you now have access to a different network of support that comes to the table when it comes to your expansion of your family and support. How do you feel about that? How do you feel like if your partner in parenting now has a different set of in laws that are very willing to support with the children that you and your partner, your ex partner, have had? Are you okay with your child having access to this support? Are you embracing that support or are you fighting against it? And then, if you're fighting against it, are you willing to take on the extra responsibility because you've decided that you rebuke any additional support from a family that is not your own or the family that you're used to? Okay? This is where we definitely have to think about what it takes to have a blended family. You have to address all of those emotional triggers for yourself, okay? And not just the emotional triggers, because the reality is we're protective over our babies, hopefully, right? You're protective over your babies. And if you don't know them people, I don't know them. I don't know them, so why is my baby going over there, right? But you know that you want to do certain things when you have your children, and sometimes you don't want to trade your time, right? It's my turn to have the children, but I also want to do this. I could do this and have my children if, you know, my new man, his cousin has all the rest of the family's children, and my children can go over there while me and him go on a date, right? But what if the other parent is like, nah, I don't want anybody else helping to take care of my child if it ain't you? Well, do you ignore that? No, you don't ignore it, because that is not clear communication. You don't ignore, okay? You do have a conversation that sticks to the facts, right? So in that scenario, you say to the other parent, I have a desire, I'm doing something, I have support over here. Now, if you don't want our baby or our babies to be with those people while I'm still going to live my life, which has nothing to do with your life, then you would have to be willing to take care of the children while I go live my life and then return them back to me, or kind of deal with this reality, because you have already made a commitment not to interfere in their personal world either when the children are in their care, so long as the both of you recognize that there are no dangers. Okay? It gets very touchy because now we have to separate being a control freak, okay, and being a fearful Frankie, all right, from the reality of we still need support. The two individuals may not have all the arms, legs to do everything all the time. And luckily, there is additional support. It can be complicated. All right. This is just the beginning. This is just the beginning. All right. And as a foundation, I want you to establish with yourself and the other parent whether you both agree to co parent. Because co parenting is cooperative parenting, it means that you two agree to cooperate with each other in order to create a harmonious blend in parenting in different households, okay, in different scenarios, so that the child still feels like they're receiving love and support from both of their parents. There's a presence on both sides. And if one or both of you decide that you do not have what it takes to cooperate with the other parent, or you just do not choose to cooperate with the other parent, then you all are looking at agreeing to single parenting. And can you do single parenting and have two parents? Sure. But the one thing you're still going to have to do is split up your time. But that means when it's your time to have your child or your children, nobody calls you, no one questions anything, nobody says anything to you, do whatever the hell you want. And when that child or those children go to the other parent, same thing goes. Don't question, don't call, don't say nothing. They are parenting, they're doing whatever it is, whatever the hell it is they decided that they want to do while they're on their time parenting. What they're doing has nothing to do with you. If you wanted to have them vegan over at your house, because that's what you believe in, and you made that decision, then that's what happens at your house when you're parenting. When those children or that child goes to that parent, if they change up the diet, that is their business. That's what they decided they want to do. And y'all have agreed on single parenting. Do you see that? It may not cooperate. The two systems may not even go together. But y'all have decided that as a parent who cares about their child, you're going to give the best of what you feel is the best for your child, and they're going to give their best to what they feel is the best for that child. Which brings me back to the fact that the hard truth is you're not the only parent. And so the same way you feel the conviction, especially mama's like, I carry that baby, and that baby is mine, and I have all of the best tools and decision making skills and all of that to say what I want for that child. The other parent also can have that same sentiment. And so unless y'all decide to cooperate with one another, then you're agreeing to single parenting, and both of you will need to also understand the facts. You over there, I'm over here. And the only thing we need to discuss is drop off and pick up. Okay? And most times that doesn't end so well because, like I said, parenting is complex. Not complicated, but complex, dynamic. All right? And if you can, I urge you all to try your best to do it outside of, external government telling you what and how to do things until it's absolutely necessary. Because that can definitely draw the wind out of the energy that two people need to communicate and build a cooperative, harmonious environment for their children. Do you have any questions? Please let me know in the comments, and I'll be glad to address them. I hope so far so good that I've stepped on a few of your toes. But also that I've opened your eyes to a few of your blind spots when it comes to your feelings versus who really counts, and it's the children. Because if you ask the children, sometimes their opinions about what's going on will blow your mind. Meanwhile, you thinking you are Disneyland and the other parent is hell. They might have a different opinion based off of what it is that they intrinsically need and desire. So that's all I got for you all today. You have your homework. With that being said, reflect on your co-parenting. And if you're a grandparent and you are part of the immediate parenting and support, then you can use this information as well to be helpful. Okay? To be helpful. let me know how it goes. Let me know if you have any specific desires to free up yourselves of any extra drama around the beautiful responsibility of parenting. Let me see. Vicky Washington, you said, I am triggered. I'd love for you to tell us why you're triggered. Co-parent with my daughter's biological, but he's been a deadbeat for 18 years. Deadbeats. Deadbeat parents. You know, it's an interesting conversation when it comes to deadbeat parents. Just the term itself, it really sucks, right? I don't think anyone wants to be titled a deadbeat parent. And everyone who is a parent knows that they don't want to be the deadbeat parent, even if they are the deadbeat parent. Like, they're not going to be in the streets talking about, I'm the deadbeat parent. Outside of some type of total mental imbalance, they're probably not going to go around saying, yeah, I got a kid, I don't take care of them. I don't take care of them kids. They gotta be with let their parent take care of them. They whatever parent has them. Let their mother take care of them. Let their father take care of them. Right? If anything, if it's a guy, then he'd be like, I don't know if that's my kid, so like I'm not in it. Or deep down inside, like they just quiet. People don't even know they have a child because they're struggling with their own inner demons around a lot of fear sometimes. Fear of being seen as a failure as a parent. Sometimes fear that they don't have anything to offer. Because as far as they're concerned, if they don't have money, then they don't have anything to offer. If they can't have you, because I'm not going to act like that doesn't exist, right? Sometimes those people, oh, we can't be in a relationship. Well, I don't want to be in a relationship with my child neither. Like, too bad. Okay? In those circumstances, are you co-parenting with a biological parent? You may not be, but you may be co-parenting with a new partner, new spouse. You may be co-parenting with the grandparents. So you want to look at who's your parenting team. Okay, like direct parenting team, not like an auntie or uncle that helps out sometimes or a godparent, but someone you genuinely go over schedules because this is who is going to support your ability to provide and be a main staple in your children's lives. So all of these topics are still important. What if you have a parent that is in prison? How do you incorporate um, that child's ability to communicate with that parent, regardless of the choices that that parent may have made that cause them to lose their freedom? Do you just throw it out the window? Do you say, well, to hell with it? Well, they're not around. They can't do nothing. They locked up. You know what I mean? Like, you may have a young child that needs to be practicing their writing abilities, their writing skills. Have them write to that parent. Have them really push the envelope in drawing pictures and expressing themselves to that parent who is away, right? And outside of your own frustrations, you know, seeking to allow that parent to, even if they have to write to an address that's not your actual home, right? To communicate back with that child. A level of creativity and desire to create wholeness for your children is really a selfless thing. Okay? It's really selfless. Some parents make it seem like the other parent has to have money. If a person's broke, how can they have a relationship with kids and co-parent? Because a lot of the things that we do for our children are outside of what we do for them financially. That's why. So I remember having a really terrible co-parenting experience, where honestly, because I was in grind mode, like grind mode, performing, travel a lot. I still travel a lot, right? The parents, the other parents' lack of finances was the least of my worries. I had enough to take care of myself and my child. All I needed, really, was for them to be around. Just be around. Like, I gotta study. I gotta hit these books. I have to pass exams. I gotta get to class. Take this kid out to the park and give him like a good hour and a half of playtime and attention so that I can focus on this and not be dealing with the guilt associated with the desire to be present with my child and fill in the gaps and my desire to get ahead in life with what I felt was necessary for me to be able to support my child long term. It didn't cost anything. It just cost them a walk to the park to create a memory that I wasn't going to be there for, but at least I would know that my child was in the presence of their other parent. That's all I needed. So, to answer your question, um, like I said, time is valuable. You know what happens when a child gets sick and you still have to go to work? That other parent might not have money to pay their doctor's bill or might not have money to pay for lunch this and the third, but they can take the child to the doctor's office and sit there for the damn day while you are going to get the bread. It's still valuable because if it wasn't them, you'd have to pay a babysitter. And no, you don't need to pay the other parent to do the things for your child or your children that they couldn't afford themselves, but they can themselves afford it time wise. Got it? Shit, I think about it like this, right? The children do want to experience nice things and they do want to see their parents. But the times where they spend alone, where no one's present, I'm not talking about even, I'm not even just saying alone in the house, right? Not just alone in the house. Alone meaning you're even home, but you're not present because you're tired from working, busting your ass, or you're trying to get your homework done, or you're like so busy just cleaning, 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 trying to keep everything organized and want everything to be perfect that you didn't notice like that they scraped their knee. You didn't notice that they couldn't reach something in the cabinet and kind of sat longer than they wanted to because they were waiting for a moment to ask for your help. You know, you didn't notice that they were looking a little sad today because something happened at school, but no one was there to ask them, well, how did school go? How are you feeling? And who are your friends? Do you even know the names of the children that your children play with at school? You see what I'm saying? There are so many different aspects and variations that go into parenting and being present to this little human being that is growing. That is, it doesn't all fall under the bracket, I mean, or the category of how much money can you spend. Okay. Let's see. Aki said he went and raised another woman's kids and left his. Okay. So you're all right. And you said Aki says she's co-parenting with her spouse and their grandparents. Cool. What do we do about someone who leaves their own biological children and then they move on and they're able to parent other children? One, Aki, I know that you're a consistent student. I push the envelope. How do you know? How do you really know how much they contribute to another person's family? Besides the fact that they're physically there. How do you know whether or not they have a desire to even see or participate in any kind of singular way with their biological children? And I ask, how do you know? Because maybe in the beginning it's very evident. Words are shared, things are exchanged. This is how I feel, this is what I'm going to do. Time passes, people grow, they have different experiences, but when do we take a moment to return back to the focus and question, hey, how you doing? This is what's going on. And I'm saying this from a place where I've experienced various phases of co-parenting with one of my parents that was very difficult at first. Okay? And learned what was too much, what's too little, what's necessary in order to bridge the gap until my child got of age to continue that without me. And that's another part. Okay? And that's another part. You don't have to be playing in between the whole time. Once your child or your children get a certain age, you can definitely teach your children or your child how to communicate with their other parent and show them that you support their desire to connect with their other parent, as opposed to, I don't fuck with your other parent, so, this how I feel. They ain't shit. And now your child feels conflicted internally when something biologically usually turns on inside of an individual to want to know, who is this other person? Who is this other person that was a part of creating me? Because I see all of these parts of myself in this parent, but there's some other things that I'm missing. And so when that happens, you want your child to feel comfortable enough coming to you with, hey, do you have the number or a way to contact my other parent? Do you have a name for a parent that I should be looking for? Because there are so many different stories behind the scenes that those are real questions that your growing child may have, right? How do you deal with one parent that believes in corporal punishment and when the other doesn't? I personally feel that it's a slave mentality and you must take the time to apply appropriate discipline. Well, that's a good question. Discipline, all right? Very good question. I'd like to take back like some of the, what is it? Some of what you said is kind of preachy programming, right? Corporal punishment is slave mentality. Before there was a slavery, okay, there is this innate desire to correct an offspring. I'll call them offspring, children, right? But I kind of want you to get more into your primitive self when it comes to parenting. Because discipline really begins with um, creating boundaries for safety purposes. Discipline comes into play where you're establishing hierarchy, right, and command. So the line between physical disciplinary actions and abuse, right, occurs where, are you acting out of frustration? Are you acting out of limited resources? Okay? Limited resources meaning, okay, I told my 3-year-old to sit down and they did not listen to me. If I have the experience of and the knowledge and the tools, knowing a 3-year-old might need something to captivate their attention more so than their desire to see me as this scary adult, right? Because it's still probably very self centered, not even like understanding that this adult, my parents said, sit down. And if I get up again, like their brain, their memory is like this long for for that moment. They sit down for a second, they get up, and they keep going. Okay, one parent might explain to the child, sit here, and then give them something to keep them occupied. Another parent might just blow the gasket, smack the child, so the child understands that whatever the hell this adult said to me, like there it's gonna hurt. But how many of you have seen a small child get a beating only to repeat the behavior anyway? Okay? And that will go to show you that it's not a battle for the child. The child is not concerned with their ego, right? The child's ego is not bruised by the licks. They actually felt the physical pain, but they didn't make that connection, right? It's the adult that's having a bruised ego. It's the adult that's feeling out of control. So if we start to really look at corporal punishment, so corporal punishment can include like, okay, you didn't anything that causes pain, really. Kneel on your knees and hold these books out here. Okay? That's corporal punishment. Just as much as pulling out a belt and whooping tail. Because it's painful. It's physically painful. Can you offer creative ways around corporal punishment? Can you explain that, you would rather build up the child's ability to communicate and articulate whatever is on their mind or their hearts by modeling it? If I say to a parent who has been raised with corporal punishment, is whatever I say goes, and I don't want to hear shit, and if you don't do what I tell you to do, I'm gonna bust your ass because that's how my parents did it, and you try to tell them, that's slave mentality, they're gonna be like, shut the fuck up. Like, what are you talking about? That's my child. Like, I'm in charge of them. I could beat them if I want to. And what do you say to that? No, but that's my child. And I don't want, see where we're fighting back and forth now? So what do you present? What do you present besides thinking like you have all the answers? Ask them. When you was getting your ass bust, did you ever ask yourself, why am I getting my ass bust? Like, did you have to hit me for that? You ask them that. But you don't ask it in a tone right, that makes them want to fight you back. Ask them to reflect on how it felt for them. Ask them to reflect on what was it that caused them to listen after the fact. Just ask them. Ask them, can you install a 3 strikes rule to give them some more time? And you got to be hip, right? You want to give them the opportunity to think about how things escalate. Meanwhile, you're also giving your child an opportunity to correct their behavior before the parent goes into whooping their ass. Right? How is that? Tell me what you think about that feedback. Vicky, abused by my maternal uncles in the care of my grandparents. So did you say you were triggered because when it comes to co-parenting, I also mentioned that there could be other family? Fear-based thinking. Vicky, I think what you're saying is important. That's where I am now. Okay. Vicky, I want to address your comment because I'm sure that more than just you who are watching this video, or who will come across this video, will share that while being in a split household and outside forces, having access to support, that there are also other endangerments that are real, okay, that exist. How do you avoid that without being a fearful Freddy, um, or a control freak? And that's where we'll get into other hot topics like open communication, um, like background checking, character checking, people who are going, what are the standards for who can be around your child, and how do you want to do that? So it's not a short conversation, it's not a one-time conversation, but it requires you to get into a place where you can ask some real questions and back up your demands, because for whatever demands you have for your babies that another person is not willing to provide, you will wholeheartedly need to be able to back it up for yourselves. And that is what is very empowering around being the person to even open up the conversation, because you would have already reflected on some of the things that you might need, for your support. You can identify them. You can identify people, um, who can be your support and on your team when it comes to co parenting. You can identify people that might be on the other team that might pose a real threat to the well being of your child or your children, but from a place of clarity. Not just, I don't like her because she's with my new man. I mean, she's with my ex. Or I don't like him because, like, and you need to know that too. So, for those of you who are even thinking about bringing babies to the planet, like, believe that person when they say, if we're not together, like, I don't want to co parent. Some people say that, they mean it. So, you want to acknowledge that too. That you're not required to be a co parent if you don't want to be a co parent. You're not. Does it help the children? I would say so, because I think they want both of their parents. um, but otherwise, take into consideration all that we was talking about here. Cheryl said, I will talk to that child. Given the consequences of the reaction will get takes time, but better outcome from the child's hidden like video. Yep. Oh, for those of you who might not see the live chat, sorry. I'm gonna share this little tidbit with you all. And don't forget to thumbs up this video. It's a whole. This is like a long video, but it's a lot of information. Um, we had someone said they agree with the tactic of getting eye level with children, explaining to them their behavior and the consequences of certain behaviors before they receive it. The other side of that, which is not co-parenting, but it goes into parenting straight up, is whatever you say the consequences are going to be, they need to be that. So if you don't want to commit yourself to always going to the highest level of punishment for a child, you want to make sure that you have some other things in place before you get there. You let them know, like strike one, like you're gonna be in the quiet corner for an hour. Strike two, then I'm taking away all your toys, and then you for the whole weekend or whatever, 2 days, you're not gonna be able to play with this or that or talk to whoever. Strike three, you get all of that, and I'm gonna bust your ass. Nah, and you're gonna get licks. You know what I'm saying? But you have to actually stick with that. Stick with that. Okay? Because you want your children, and I mentioned this before, you want your children to trust you. Trust you. Like, regardless of if they are trusting you to do something that's going to be painful or something that's going to be pleasant. Like, get them a gift. Like, hey, if you get A's on your report card, then I'm going to give you $50. Come through. Don't be like, oh, I expect you to get A's. They be like, well, what happened to the $50? Get them the $50. Okay? Trust meaning they know that whatever comes out your mouth is what it is. And that's a good way to fit is it creates a lot more security. Okay? Think about it for yourself. Even if it's your friends or your mate. If they say they're gonna do something, whether it's good, bad, beautiful or ugly, and they follow through, then you can trust them. And that creates a sense of security, right? Same with co-parenting. Whatever you agree to do or how you're going to do it, you want to establish um, trust. You got that? Are there any other questions before I let y'all go? All right. So, somewhere in between this chat with you all, this hot topic, co parenting, you have your assignment. So, if you are currently with the parent, I want you to still establish what your co parenting looks like. Because if you're anything like normal, one of you is more of an authoritative figure than the other. um, one of you probably is more of a workaholic than the other. One of you is probably more playful than the other. So, whatever differences you all have, take note of them, make the best of them, and create a Disneyland of parenting for your children. I love to see all of you living so dynamically, harmoniously, and fully when it comes to family, life in general. Let's do this, and we can do it as we support one another in our growth because it's grow or die over here. So, peace, love, and bliss. Happy co parenting. I'm out of here.